Hey everybody, one that always bored, never boring. Last weekend I hosted my annual Christmas party. In other words, I had a bunch of mates over to play board games. I think it's fair to say everyone had a good time. I certainly did. So I thought it might be fun to share with you the games we played that made the night memorable. Maybe some of these picks will inspire you for any games nights you may have over the festive period. First up was Hoax. This is a game I reviewed in depth only last week, so I'm not going to drill into the gameplay here. If I remember, I'll put a link in the video description to the full review. The reason I picked Hoax is because we always play a hidden role game, and normally that hidden role game is Avalon. I like Avalon a lot, so much so it did sneak into the top 50 games list I put together earlier this year. Admittedly, it was number 50, but it was there. This year I was looking for something a little different, and Hoax fit the bill. Unlike in Avalon, the players in Hoax are all out for themselves, and I think the game relies more on logical deduction and memory rather than people trying to bluff each other, so it has a slightly different dynamic. It's also a little quicker to play and is very much a filler game. At times I think I may like Hoax more than Avalon, but I have played it far fewer times and it's probably too early to say if the shine will wear off. At the Christmas party, we ended up playing 2 games. It's true to say a few mistakes were made, and there was at least 2 instances of someone revealing their identity when they weren't supposed to, but it didn't seem to ruin the fun. So I'm going to give this a score of 4 out of 5 on the Festive Funometer, which is a made up device that displays arbitrarily selected numbers. The second game on the list is Endless Pass, a Viking saga. I reviewed this game on the channel back in July after receiving it as a birthday present. Again, I will put a link in the video description. I had played this game with my family, but the Christmas party was the perfect opportunity to play with a full complement of 6 players. The idea of the game is pretty simple. A bunch of Vikings are all seeking glory and death at the end of the world. They venture into the titular pass to kill their enemies and curry favour with the gods. Monsters can be killed, blocked and avoided, and any that survive are passed on to the next player to deal with, so that over time it's possible for quite a large horde to gather. And while players may be attempting to gather glory by killing the monsters that challenge them, this is very much a take that game with countless ways to screw with the other players. You can steal their stuff, bump monsters onto them, force them to draw more cards so they face additional threats, or force them to draw less cards to starve them of essential resources. Best of all, you can directly attack them either with a sword or by throwing bottles of Greek fire at them. We played twice. In the first game we all focused more on killing monsters as they were served up, and that was fine, but in the second game everybody leaned into the idea of fighting each other. This led to numerous fights between the players as the monsters were largely ignored and continued to stack up. That second game was hilarious. There was so much player on player violence. I am not the biggest fan of games that are very heavily geared towards take that strategies, but for some reason I thought this one was great. And I'm pretty sure everyone at the table would like to play it again in the future. For some of us, it was the highlight of the evening. For that reason, it's definitely a game I am going to be keeping in my collection and rolling out at other games nights. And if we look at the Festive Funometer, we can see it scored 4.5 knives in the back out of 5. The third game we played, maybe it was the fourth game, I don't know, by this time the drinks have been flowing, but let's say it was the third game, was Dreams. Dreams is yet another game I have already talked about on the channel all the way back in December 2021, which was probably the last time it hit the table during my Christmas party that year. The link's in the video description for that review. Dreams is yet another hidden role game. In each round, one player is secretly designated as the mortal, while all the other players are gods. Each player is given 3 stars and then 4 pictures are drawn from a really beautifully illustrated deck of dream cards. One of these cards represents the true dream, which is known to the gods but not to the mortal. The idea is that players take turns positioning one of their stars on a mat in a way that represents the true dream. But of course, the mortal doesn't know the true dream, so they have to look at what everyone else is doing and then try to guess which picture is the right one. Once all players have placed all 3 of their stars, everyone votes. Gods have to vote for who they think the mortal is. The mortal has to vote for which of the 4 pictures is the true dream. Points are then allocated for correct guesses. Additionally, the mortal gets points if they go undetected, and anybody who isn't accused of being the mortal also gets bonus points. And that's it really. Not a very in-depth game, and it's okay. It does have a habit of outstaying its welcome a bit. We played a truncated game which lasted for 3 or 4 rounds. Also, it's really not very easy to represent a lot of the pictures just by using your star gems, which means sometimes the voting really does come down to blind guesswork. Certainly not a great game, not one I would recommend all that often, possibly not even one that I will keep in my collection, but it was an interesting diversion before we moved on to the next game. Festive Funometer score, 3 celestial bodies out of the vast nothingness of infinite space. Our fourth game was The Crystal Maze. This is a game from my vintage collection and it's crap. It's really not a very good game at all. It does all the things I really dislike in a game and then it manages to do them all in a way that seems to make them even worse. But when you have a game this bad, if you can drop it into your party at just the right time, after just the right amount of drinks, sometimes magic can happen. Yes, this is one of those so bad it's good sort of games. Nothing you would really want to play on a proper games night, but if you were looking for something really silly to do with a group of friends, there are worse ideas. And playing this won't wind you up in jail. At its heart, it's a roll and move game. Only you don't roll, you spin a ball around inside the crystal dome and then strain your eyes trying to read the braille around the edges to figure out how many spaces your playing piece is allowed to move. There are 4 zones to explore, matching the zones from the television show, and the idea is to win 1 crystal from each zone in order to win a chance to collect gold tokens from the crystal dome. As you move around the board, there are spaces that do nothing, spaces that force you to miss a go, spaces that force you to lose a crystal, all the really awful things that make old roll and move games really awful. But also, as you explore the zones, you will land on spaces that let you play one of the games. Now, when the Crystal Maze TV show was first in development, Games Workshop actually had a hand in designing the games that would challenge the contestants. No such luck here. But at least the concept behind the games is neat, and some of the games are actually quite clever, but many suffer from poor construction. For example, in this game you have to drop a crystal in the top of a tower containing a hidden maze, and you have to shake it to make the crystal come out the bottom. 9 times out of 10, it just drops straight through. For another example, in this game you have to pick up 3 little rods and position them in a receptacle, but the claw hand is too small to grab the rods, and considering you only have 45 seconds to complete a challenge, there's no way you are ever going to win. For another example, in this game you have to fire a catapult at a tower. You're supposed to hit the shield to make the crystal fall down. Doesn't matter, hit anywhere, it's going to fall off. But there are some other games that are quite fun and challenging. I particularly like the Agincourt game, where you have to kill all the knights with 1 archer. You have 6 cards to move the archer, and each of those cards specifies a number of moves and a direction. You have to play the cards one at a time to shift the archer left and right so he can kill all the knights. Now that's a decent game. There are also ball-bearing maze games, a tangrams game, and a game where you have to connect tokens together to make a circuit board. So you play these games until someone gets 4 crystals, and then you fill the crystal dome with gold and silver tickets, and everybody gets to take a turn shaking the dome to make the tickets fall out. Only the tickets don't fall out, they get stuck inside the dome. But if some players do get gold tokens, the player with the most, after deducting all their silver tokens, wins the game. And it's all very silly. Poor construction and some very old school game design means it really isn't all that enjoyable, but at the party we ended up having a blast. Nobody could win the games, especially those that required any kind of dexterity, and when anyone was lucky enough to get a free crystal, for some reason or other they would promptly lose it by landing on the wrong space on the board. It would have been agony to play with the wrong company, but based on this one playthrough at my Christmas party, the Festive Funometer is giving this one 4 gold tickets, 10 silver tickets, and a day out go-karting for the winning team. At this point it was getting pretty late, so it was time to play something noisy. That's why Billionaire hit the table. Billionaire is basically a version of Pit from Spears Games. Players are dealt a hand of cards containing different goods. Everyone then starts trading cards simultaneously in an attempt to get a full set of whichever goods they want. However, nobody wants to reveal the cards they are trying to collect, so all they can do is hold out a number of cards and then ask for an equal number of cards from any other player. All the cards that the player offers in such a trade must be of the same type, with the exception of the 2 wild cards in the deck. And because everybody is trading at the same time, this instantly deteriorates into a table full of people screaming numbers until numbers lose all meaning and belting each other in the face with cards. We played several hands until someone had accumulated enough money to become the billionaire of the title, and it was time to move on to something else to give my throat a rest. The Festive Funometer gives this game a 2, 2, 2, 2. Anybody want to trade? 2, 2, 2, 1 then, out of a billion. After that, we thought we had time for just one more game, so we leaned on an old favourite, snake oil. Snake oil comes out at most of my Christmas parties and it always goes over well. If you've never played it, the concept is very simple. One player takes on the role of a customer with a personality randomly drawn from a customer deck. The other players have a hand of word cards. They must take 2 of these cards, combine them to create the name of a product, and then pitch that product to the customer. After all the pitches are over, the customer chooses which product they would like to buy, and the next player becomes the new customer. And this is always so much fun. I love snake oil because it gives players a chance to be creative, but more than that, it lets them be creative in the way they want to be. For example, I have a friend who has a very Reeves and Mortimer style of humour, and for pretty much every product he comes up with, you can ask the question, but how does it work? It's just a lovely game, and it's always so much fun to hear the different ideas players come out with, many of which are usually rude. For that reason, on the Festive Funometer, snake oil scores a 69. And that, everybody, was my 2023 Christmas party. To put it bluntly, I have not had the best year, and in particular the last few months have been very tough. But gatherings like this, when I get my best friends together and we can just be stupid for a few hours, makes a massive difference. It certainly helped to improve my mood, and it was the most that I had laughed in a long while. I hope that you all have similar events in your near future, when you have an opportunity to unwind, de-stress, and surround yourself with the people that make your life just that little bit better. And that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.